Italian plague, and so all my thoughts go to you and your family and your workers, because I know it's been really, really hard over there. Next, another Alberto. Again, we go back very long time. We both used to work for Levi's when I was in San Francisco. Alberto was in Brussels. So we had a chance to work together on a couple of projects. We kept in touch over the years. After Levi's, Alberto went on to Garmon, and he started a really interesting concept there. I think it was the first time in the, at least in the chemical side of the business, that I saw this happening, where instead of going only to their traditional customers, who were the laundries, they decided to actually go and do research and development and partnership with their customer's customer, because they wanted to make sure that their customers were successful in providing the best product for their end customers, which was a really interesting approach and something that we can all learn from. If we help our customers be successful, then it's better for us, it's better for them, and it's better for the end user, of course. After that, after the Italian job, Alberto moved on to a great German company, Rudolf, and he's doing the same thing that he did with Garmon there. He set up a fantastic development center in Milano, and if you can ever travel and go back there, please go and check it out, because it's super, super cool. Next one would be C, my friend, old friend Carlos Arias. And Carlos reminds me a little bit of Aamir in his management approach. He also comes from a very strong background in the apparel business. He's now here with us with the hat of CEO of a technology company, Jeanologia. But his background is really in the apparel manufacturing. I first knew him when he was running Coramza in Guatemala. Coramza at the time was making about 100,000 garments, 100,000 pairs of jeans a day. Like every single day, that factory was churning out 100,000 pairs of jeans. Just let it sink for a second. And everybody was buying from them, from Levi's, Abercrombie, Kohl's, everybody, or maybe. Really successful operation up to a point. And eventually, it was not that successful. And hold that thought for a second, because maybe that could be a bit of a lesson for the gigantic operations that we have around the world. But after the demise of Coramza, Carlos almost single-handedly managed to put together a partnership with the cotton growers in Texas and the denim mill, ACG, and created Denimatrix. And I had the pleasure of working with Carlos at Denimatrix for a few years on a number of projects. It was a great experience. After that, Carlos left the denim world for a while, so I won't even talk about what you did after that, because that's a waste of time. But he's now back with us with Jeanologia, so I'm really looking forward to his contribution to the industry again. And last but not least, our friend Maurizio Donadi. We got a lot in common. As you can see, we both go to the same hairstylist. We both worked for Levi's back in the days. He was running all the high-end brands out of Amsterdam for Levi's Strauss. The other thing that we have in common, we're both California Italians. We both live here in California, and I think he's just as pissed off about the industry as I am. After so many years of seeing how this industry has been exploiting nature and environment and labor for so long, we're all trying to figure out alternative ways. So he has a company in Los Angeles called Atelier Repairs, and he makes beautiful new product using stuff that people throw away. So again, let that sink for a second and hold that thought for later, because it's a great inspiration for all of us. And he's here as a brand and a retailer, because he is selling wholesale, but he also has his own store. So we have pretty much contributions from every segment of the industry. So Sandeep, I give the mic back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefano. That was wonderful introductions and very personal introductions, I would say, because you know everyone so long and so deep, you know. So coming back to our talk, the major question what we all are facing is, you know, what is the way forward? What is denim industry supposed to do in the near future and coming times? So, I mean, we have to explore this, and I put this question first to Aamir and get his views.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, Stefano, for your kind words. As far as this question is concerned, Sandeep, because you're talking about the denim industry, and denim industry is so all-encompassing, right from, let's say, the fibers to the yarns to the manufacturers to the distribution to brands and to retail. So there's a huge amount of churn that the whole industry will go through, and every part of the industry, starting off with retail, and we're seeing what's really happening in the industry. How are the weaker ones really sort of going through a lot of aggravation, a lot of Chapter 11 going through. And the fact is that with so many distractions that we've had till now, not distractions, alternate options for consumers, which is right from, let's say, holiday to eating out, to vacations, to cell phones. Continuously, apparel, including jeans, have been losing share to these other industries. So, to be honest, I think as an industry, apparel industry in general, and denim industry in particular, has got a breather. For some time to come, people will not be able to travel. People will not be able to sort of go to restaurants, or less going to the restaurants. So that corpus is available, or that money is available for the consumers. And let's say jeans, the unit cost of jeans being low, it's about instant gratification at a low cost, right? So I think this travel not happening, and I at times worry as to how will people like Stefano not travel, because I've seen Stefano. He's the closest who comes to teleportation or telekinesis that we have been reading about, right? I mean, he'll be here now, and next moment he'll be in LA. So I'm almost convinced, Stefano, that possibly every night you tell your wife to shake your bed and to sort of fasten a seatbelt so that you can go off to sleep.
So, it feels so weird not being on a plane now that I can't even tell you. That's why I have a Starship here.
So I think to answer your question, Sandeep, the industry has got a breather. The whole industry has got a breather, and we have this short window before people go back to other means of spending the money, and the whole industry will have to really evolve itself to be able to listen to the consumer more carefully and to be able to deliver as far as denim, we be into denim manufacturing, as well as luckily as Arvind is also into brands and retail. Clearly, there's a huge opportunity that we see to bring in technology, better efficiencies. Of course, like Stefano said, that doing things in a way more cleaner manner as an industry. We all said and done, we use a lot of chemicals. We do create a lot of damage to the environment as an industry. So huge opportunity for us, all of us to evolve.
So do you think, we are in a position actually right now to listen to the consumers, because that is something which is kind of lost because we are not really in touch with the consumers right now?
Well, I would tend to disagree, Sandeep. I think continuously and in all, now with so much of social media, the messaging is coming from multiple directions, and it's a very secular kind of a messaging that we're getting. And there are people who are listening to the consumers, and they are the ones who are winning in the market. So obviously there's a huge clutter, there's too much of product, there's too much of supply, but the ones who are winning are the ones who have been able to really listen to the consumer and tailor their offerings to really solve something for the consumer.
Very well said. Thank you, Aamir. So the same question goes to Alberto Candiani. Please, Alberto, share your views on this, how we are going to go ahead on this crisis.
I think the industry shall be embracing the concept of reducing and reduction without creating extra damages. I know what I'm saying is not going to be very popular, or maybe doesn't make sense to most of the textile entrepreneurs, but it is quite obvious that this break, let's call it a break, that most of the world took lately, I mean, the planet has appreciated that. And not only the planet, I think the markets will appreciate that. Now, reduction is something we should consider at this point, because we all know that pretty much till yesterday, we've been overproducing, we haven't been producing. And yeah, we've been forced to reduce. And today, I think you can be a very successful businessman if you think the other way around, which means try to be successful by reducing. Do less, do it better, try to stay competitive. Most of all, try not to kill jobs. So I think this mindset is a new type of mindset which can be appreciated by the end consumer. Quality can be appreciated by the end consumer, which I suddenly call a citizen, even though this quote, I stole it from Maurizio Donadi, who's gonna tell you more about the difference between the end consumer and the citizen. And he is totally right about that, but I leave it to you, Maurizio. And yes, so I believe reduction and again, yes, how to embrace reduction and then how to restructure, because if you do less and you do it better, eventually people want more and then you can grow again. But it's a very, very tricky, it's a very, very tricky matter. And again, it will take a little while to adjust. We know we're adjusting to a new environment. Adaptation is, humans' top notch characteristic. Let's do that, and let's not try to go back to the old normality if the old normality wasn't great. I mean, if we have the opportunity to create a new normality, let's do it in a positive way. And again, let's try to be very conscious about ourselves, the planet. We're talking health. Health in this case, relates as much to humans as much to the planet. And I think this is really changing the industry going forward, even in products, even in consumeristic behaviors. But yeah, I think embracing reduction is actually the most challenging aspect.
So reduction, I mean, as you said, is the major thing we have to do, and it will actually automatically happen because number of retailers are going out, and some parts of the supply chain may also be phased out. So that may happen automatically, and probably we'll go in the direction of high quality. Alberto.
Thanks, Alberto. I think you mentioned actually a super important point, the point of finally understanding that we need to reduce our output. And that's something that we've been talking about for a while. And I always say, all these people talking about how sustainable they want to be, I don't believe that they are sustainable until they make a plan on how to reduce what they're making. Because if we look at what we just need to look around us. 100 billion garments produced every year for 7 billion people. Is 30% of all the garments that are made they're never even bought. So we go through the whole process of using resources, producing fabric, producing garments, shipping them and everything, shipping to the stores, and then nobody even looks at them. So 1/3 of what we make is already useless anyways. And after that, it gets even worse because 75-80% of what we make will end up in a landfill soon after people buy them. So I think it's way overdue, and you're absolutely right. You're an example of I call it a survivor, because your company is one of the last ones of what used to be a great tradition of European textiles, and you guys managed to survive because when your company started a long time ago, you were making basics like everybody else. And then you figured that making basics was not going to cut it, that there was a strong competition coming from everywhere else. And you had to diversify and make a better product. And so instead of trying to produce more, because the traditional thinking is we make more, we amortize our cost, and we can still survive. You kind of did the opposite, which is what more people should be looking into right now, which is instead of making more, let's try to be more profitable and more productive with smaller quantities, because at the end of the day, that is what we need. So sorry for the interruption, but I thought it was a really good point.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. I mean, and again, myself, I experienced that before, after the 2008 and 9 crisis, where for the first time I was actually forced to reduce a little bit the company. We've done it in a very elegant way. We didn't lay off people. We just took advantage of the social nets, or so-called, I mean, so basically pre-retirement, blah, blah, blah. And so we compressed a little bit our production. We took one shift down, and we went from 650 to 580 workers. We lost a couple of millions in capacity, but that was had to be made. That call had to be made, because if you still want to produce those 2 millions, they will float in the market. Who are you going to sell them to? If there's no, yes, there will be a buyer eventually in the lower segment, or discounts, and it doesn't make any sense.
Well said. So our next speaker, Alberto Di Conti. Alberto, can you hear me? Alberto Di Conti. I think he can't hear. So we go to Carlos. Carlos, can you share your views?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation, Sandeep. I know Alberto probably is now back on the. Can you hear us, Alberto?
We lost you.
We lost the audio from Alberto, so while he
the microphone on,
figures it
Alberto.
out, yeah, I will start so we don't keep everybody waiting. So thank you for the invitation, Sandeep. Stefano, thank you for the lovely introduction. I really appreciate it. I think the way forward for denim is really about transforming, resetting deeply, understanding that consumers, really, we all fall in love with denim as consumers. I think there's a really visceral way in which we connect to denim as a market. And I think that's why we are so privileged to work in this market, in which denim is such an important part of what we do. And I think we were discussing earlier, and Aamir was mentioning, and then Alberto also, the issue of consumers and how we connect there. How do we keep that? And for many years now, I think we have been, as an industry, not performing that well. I think we had distanced ourselves, increased the length of supply chains, disconnected from the consumers. In many ways, it's almost crazy making to think that we can figure out what consumers want 12 months in advance. I think there needs to be clarity about how we create postponement strategies. How do we integrate better? How do we make a more fair collaboration between supply chain partners? I think that we are seeing unfairness as this crisis is unfolding. It's a terrible crisis, but there's some fairness that needs to get back into the game. And one of the things I believe is that we today have extraordinary tools that we don't use enough. I think integrating from a digital perspective is going to make more sense than ever. The consumer today understands the world differently, sees the world differently. We still spend tremendous amounts of money developing with physical samples, making DHL and UPS and all of those guys millions upon millions of dollars, when we could be collaborating significantly more on a digital platform, and then bringing things to market faster, working to really understand how we each add value. I see a world where denim mills like Arvind and Candiani push for factories to understand their product better and really do beautiful product that connects with consumers almost instantly, and work with brands. We have now digital platforms that will allow this. This collaboration should be happening more. And I think we are in a good moment where we need to think about that. And I completely agree with Stefano's point about less and about reducing the use of chemicals, reducing the use of water, reducing our footprint in this world, and And we've talked about sustainability for a while. I think more people are understanding why it's important, but we have to be really clear about what makes a supply chain sustainable. And I think we have to figure that out together. So I am actually quite optimistic that having so many smart people in this industry, that we will figure out strong paths. I think that markets are going to be more local. I think that there's absolutely a case for China, Brazil for Brazil, Central America for the US, North Africa for Europe. There's going to be certainly a lot of locality, and we have to just be aware that we're in a global world that acts locally, that we all know what's going on, but we need also to be aware of what happens locally. So I'm an optimist. I believe this is a strong shift, a big situation that was unforeseen. But like the old saying says, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And we need now to think very thoroughly how we collaborate better, fairly, cleaner, and more sustainably. That will be my first thought, Sandeep.
Thank you, Carlos. So your key points like speed to market, reducing the wastages, and sustainability probably are some of the key points you are raising, which are very valid points. Okay, now we come back to Alberto. I think his sound is back. So let's go to him. Alberto? No, still no? All right, some issues. So we move on to Maurizio now.
Right.
Hi,
Unfortunately, we cannot hear Alberto. What to say? So many different things to say, and sorry, my son just woke up. I would say this, that is this global situation, this virus situation has just accelerated a crisis that the apparel world was already experiencing. So it's in denim being a huge part of this crisis, from, I would say, from ideation all the way to the retail side of it, the commerce side of it.
Hello. No.
Little. We can't hear you too much.
Sorry, Maurizio, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh. So I think that this acceleration was already in the making. The virus has basically destroyed any logic to our industry and gave us, and I say that with all respect for the people that were affected by the virus physically. I mean, I would say that we have really an opportunity to start fresh. And I think that it is true that we have the knowledge, the technology, the experience, the desire of fixing this industry, and we have the capability of re-engineering, particularly in the world of denim, what good denim is all about. And in the name of global domination, we have designed and made horrible products. And I think that needs to stop. I think that the idea of reducing intelligently, designing differently, and selling in a way, selling with honesty, I would say, instead of selling with a price point. And I believe that we will all benefit, and the people that will benefit the most will be the citizen of the world, which should know about trends and stories and point of views and opinions, because that's what globalization is. Globalization is a free sharing of ideas now with the digital world instantaneously. At the same time, we need to recover from this madness, from this situation locally, as Carlos said. I think there is an incredible opportunity for the return of the made in Italy, the return of made in US, the return of the made in anywhere, made in India. And the competition should be in improving greatly the way we, from design, from concept, all the way to execution. There is an opportunity to really re-engineer all of this. And, you know, I am not in the business of producing and making. I'm in the business of transforming what already exists. So I am, I would say, the spectator of a lot of the mistakes that brands have made. And I can tell you that, and I think it's public knowledge, that we have to stop thinking about people as consumers and customers, and we have to start thinking about people as citizens, and knowing that they will vote your company or not according to the honesty of your story. And I think that the story is more important at time, more important than the product.
Maurizio, I mean, one of the key problems we face in the industry is that, you know, the story telling to the consumers, that's the most difficult part. And, you know, there's so many stories going around. So which story the consumer has to believe in, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, so storytelling is a marketing tool that that make you enamored with a company that do not deserve to be bought. And I think that's the science of marketing, which is no longer a support for beautiful product, but it is intellectual terrorism in creating chaos and desire for things that we don't need. And after 6 to 8 weeks of isolation, I think that we know pretty good what we need in life and what we don't need anymore. And we will be able to vote about food, about homes, about people, about goods, and ultimately about denim, because that's what is needed. It's the rethinking of our life and the new reimagination and a new building of our lives starts from a very difficult time. That's when people are the most effective and when the innovation starts. Innovation in goods, but innovation also in the way we think. That's the gift, the gift that we got from this bloody virus, is that we had for the first time to think about all the things that are wrong and all the things that are good and important to us. And denim being one of the most democratic house for your body, that we have an opportunity to really make it useful, utilitarian, beautiful, sustainable, traceable, long-lasting, best product we can ever make. And now I think that the citizen will understand the effort.
Thank you, Maurizio. Intellectual terrorism, wonderful phrase. I think should be used more.
Amen to that. Thank you, Maurizio. Before we continue, just 1 second before we move to Alberto, because now his microphone is working again. I see a lot of interesting questions.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, we can.
All right.
I see a lot of interesting questions popping up. So the people who are asking questions, please wait. Keep posting them. We'll save some time at the end of the session to answer them. So just keep posting them. We're not ignoring them. We'll tackle them as soon as possible after we finish the conversation. Sorry, Alberto. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
you know, the way forward, this question made me really uncomfortable because, you know, as they say, forecasting is very difficult, especially when it involves the future. Right before getting into this call, we had another call with, you know, the management director of the company, trying to figure out what the rest of 2020 was going to look like. And, you know, that was not an easy exercise at all. I think the only intelligent way to try and forecast the future is to observe the present. I tend to think that the near future of the denim fabric is bound to the near future of the social fabric, the citizen, as Maurizio calls it. What I see is that the pandemic has been a reality check for a critical mass of people, and in many different ways. I feel personal values have slightly shifted in some cases, and people after a couple of months of lockdown have realized that, you know, you can really live with much less. Okay, now we are going back to basically what we were saying before. Now I don't really want to go down a negative spiral, but in addition, we read that there are like 20-30 million of newly employed people in the US only. And thinking rationally, I really don't think that buying jeans with the latest trendy wash is necessarily going to be at the top of everybody's list moving forward. If we know the history of our beloved blue friend, you know, denim, we know that denim has always supported the needs of society as workwear first, symbol of rebellion during the 60s and 70s, and later as a fashion statement. Now, the way forward for the denim industry, if you ask me, is being able to read what consumers, what citizens, people really need from denim. Sustainability remains of major importance, and there are like titans of our industry represented here by Jeanologia, Candiani, Arvind, that have done monumental work on sustainability. Sustainability today is a ticket to play, and it's more of an expectation from consumers than a reason to buy. The role of denim as item that supports the wearer across different wearing occasions is probably more of an opportunity. I tell you one story. Our production in Germany of chemical auxiliaries is booked throughout July for this year for the production of auxiliaries for textile that provide functionality, not fashion. Okay, and to me that's a big symptom, I think.
Sorry, Alberto. That's a wonderful point. I mean, what you made is, you know, that if you are booked for till July for these functional items, I mean, that is probably what customers are looking for. They are looking for more function, more performance, and less of probably trends and designs.
I'm not claiming there is a fundamental change. I'm saying that the wind is somehow changing in certain areas.
All right. Thank you. And then we move on to Stefano now. And before you start, Stefano, I just want to add something that, you know, we'll be having some polls at the end of this session of once we have completed the discussion, and everybody present, all the participants, attendees, they can vote on certain questions, and we'll have some, you know, quick answers, and, you know, it will be interesting to see what people around the world are thinking on different points relating to the denim industry. So Stefano, please.
Thank you. Well, I think the point has been quite well discussed already by my colleagues here. We need to look at reduction of quantities. We need to relook at the value priority for all of us, and I think that's going to change quite dramatically the way people buy, and not only what they buy, but why they buy, how they buy it, where they buy from. So the whole thing is pretty much going to be different. One day we'll wake up from the nightmare and we're going to find a very different world, and it's actually up to us to make sure that it is a better world, because going back to the way things were is not something we should aspire to, because normalcy, the old normality, is what got us into this mess in the first place. And so we should really take this opportunity to really clean the slate and start all over again in some shape or form. I know utopian to think that we can reinvent the whole planet overnight. But I think there's a lot of things that we can do now that we know better. And I think this is also, like some of us were saying, this is basically accelerating a process that was already on its way. We are very sad to see a lot of big retailers going under now. There's going to be more and more bankruptcies. There's a new one every day now. But to be absolutely fair and objective, we had way over capacity of retail, especially in the Western world. I'm not talking about emerging countries where it's still early days, and hopefully they won't follow our mistakes. But we were overextended. We have way too many stores, and more importantly, we have too many stores selling exactly the same stuff with no differentiation. When the only differentiation is I'm trying to be 50 cents cheaper than you, that's no differentiation. That's just me trying to screw my suppliers more so that I can try to keep my margins. That's not a sustainable business. Sustainability is about the planet, but it's also about the people, and it's also about the profits. And if you don't look at all the three elements, you really have nothing. So I think at the end of the day, it is as horrible as this is. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to start fresh and start doing things better.
Stefano, I think you make a fantastic point about how sustainability needs to be, of course, all inclusive. It has to be about the environment. It has to be about how people live and how we support people around the world, and certainly about sustainability of companies in the long term. A really dear friend that was a president of a corporate social responsibility panel once said, sustainability is essentially about the long term. It's how do we all enjoy the long term by doing things differently in the short term. And I think our industry needs to learn that lesson. We have an opportunity now. And I think that's what I really gets me excited about. Okay, after dealing with this real difficult situation we're undergoing, after dealing with being at home, after dealing with having to think about what's next, is do we learn the lesson? Do we restart operations that have no reason of being? For example, the use of potassium permanganate spray in the world should not happen anymore. Will we restart it? Will brands rebuy it? Is this something we want continuing? And I have nothing against the guys that sell potassium permanganate, but there's other uses for that chemical. It shouldn't be in the hands of workers around the world, for example. I'm just using an example of opportunities that this industry has to reset. How do we see each other? What are the things that we were doing that we should probably stop doing very quickly and then rethink very quickly on small things? I agree with you, Stefano, that utopia means everything changes at once. Maybe not. Maybe it's a few things that really need to change. How we stop creating thousands and thousands and thousands of samples that are not necessary to give the consumer what they want. How do we hear the consumer in a different way so we don't have to really create all of this nonsense work that adds no value? I think there's important decisions that need to be made. And probably I have already seen so many friends and tremendous business owners joining this webinar. Guys, it's us, all of us here in this, listening to each other, that have definitely an opportunity to do small things where we are that will make big impacts. I just wanted to add on that, Stefano, that you were saying.
Stefano?
Thank you. Absolutely. Sorry, yes, Maurizio, jump in.
No, I just wanted to just comment quickly after Carlos that about what Carlos was saying, is that I think for the maker of fabrics and the maker in general. It is about evolution, while for brands, it needs to be a revolution. Brands truly needs to conceptualize their brands, their product line, design a lot less, design with a lot more expertise, because you have been producing product for designers, for brand in general, that did not have the knowledge and the experience of designing right. How many times I went to factory where the workers were laughing at the way things were constructed because the design was wrong to start with. How many times was that happening? And I was spectator of it. So I know that there are also, of course, amazing designers and so forth, but you know, what is design for denim? So I think that the design process today in big company, it's also considered a cost. So creativity is a cost for large corporations that are dominated, all the decisions are dominated by supply chain, which their only interest is in the status quo, right? They don't want to change anything. It took them 30 years to build their books. And we are telling now that they need to change the books? Well, my answer would be absolutely so. Now, or you're gone in 2 or 3 years. Or be happy to be 1/10 of the revenues that you were generating pre-virus. So I think that's the wake-up call is for brands, which needs to revolutionize the method from design to execution and the commerce of it. And for the industry for the manufacturing industry to evolve, because the needs now are different. Sure.
And I think there is a general misunderstanding as what design actually means, because to most people, and unfortunately even in our industry, the designer is just the guy who has to, or the girl who has to just make it pretty and make it nice for the customer, when it's complete misunderstanding. The design process is what actually determines the whole life cycle of the garment. If we took more attention in the design process of our garments, the whole thing would be much easier. Because right now, even with our best intentions, you have companies that try to overnight, they say, oh, now we're going to be sustainable. So they look at ways on how they can, God bless their souls, how they can minimize their footprint. But they're trying to retrofit something in a process that is not designed for that. So the right approach is actually to take a look at the whole life cycle of the garment from the get-go and say, this is where my garment is. Oh, Alberto is going for a walk. The life cycle of a garment, and this is what it's going to happen to the garment at the end when people stop using it, and what it's going to go, how it's going to be disposed. So you really have to look at every single step and say, let me look at the raw materials that I'm using. Let me look at the yarns. Where is the cotton coming from? Where is the dye stuff coming from? Which factory is going to make it? How they're going to make it? What is the most efficient way to avoid waste of fabric? What kind of chemicals can I use to reduce my impact? How can I make sure that the packaging does not just end up on the shop floor? And how do I make sure that the garment at the end of the day, when it's exhausted, its usefulness as a garment, maybe can be used again for something else, or be recycled, or be upcycled, downcycled, or somehow avoided going into a landfill. So I think design actually has a much bigger role than it's normally understood. And sorry, go ahead, Aamir.
A very interesting point, Stefano, and the biggest fallout that we have seen in the supply chain of the current pandemic is the problem of cash flows all across, right? Everybody. And I think the biggest source of this cash flow problem has been the inventories. So it's the brands, it's the retailers, it's the supply chain, which is holding on to large inventories, right? And which is driving this whole cash flow problem, which is driving the Chapter 11 discussions and all those issues, right? Now, the thing is that the model itself, I mean, the current model in our industry is sort of, the way it is. About, almost about a year or 12 or 14 or 16 months in advance, you're expecting some people to take a decision on behalf of the consumer as to what is he going to buy, right? Now, that's unfair, it's impossible, it is impractical, right? It's just not possible. So thousands of people trying to take a call on behalf of the customer as to what is he going to buy, and taking those calls and judgments and producing goods in advance, way years in advance, a year in advance or months in advance, and expecting those goods to sell. So I think that's where the fundamental problem is, and possibly, I don't know, and it's not going to happen overnight. It'll not be a sort of, it'll not be an event. But as a continuum, I believe with this experience, with this very sort of, unfortunate experience, possibly one can see a shift in the business model of the industry. So at times, say for example, if you see the automobile industry, right, with whatever has happened to, with the likes of Uber, the industry itself has got disrupted, where from owning assets, right, you're moving into service. People are realizing that, no, there are assets that can run and deliver more value. So rather than you own assets, and it's more convenient, it is less cost. So in our industry also, possibly, there could be this shift towards pull-based supply chain. Right now, it's all being pushed. So you're manufacturing, you're deciding, and you're pushing things to stores and to consumers, and then finally it doesn't sell, and it ends up in the landfill, as you've so rightly said, Stefano. Possibly, there's a case for a pull-based industry, and it's power to the consumer, so it's mass. All the things, cool things that we've been hearing about till now, and we thought that they're very in the realms of let's say hyper. They were more hypothetical, but possibly one is seeing that there's value in this, where it's mass customization, it's manufacturing to the requirements of the consumers, rather than taking calls on behalf of consumers. And today there are technologies available where you can produce just one unit, right? So you don't have to produce millions of yards of fabric and stuff like that. So possibly, one could see a shift towards that direction.
For sure, that would be the biggest shift, actually, and that's one that we desperately need. You're right; it's a very, very inefficient system, the one that we all participate in. Incredibly inefficient. It takes way too long. There's too much waste. There's too much really poor guesswork. And the biggest shift is that we have to move from trying to sell desperately what we have produced to finally producing what we sold or what we're selling. And that is gigantic, monumental shift. And you hinted at some of the technologies that are becoming available and some of the drive that is coming from the market. That it's not necessary to make 1 million garments and then sit on them for 6 months, 1 year, and then eventually, when you start panicking, drop the prices because they're just still sitting there. It makes no sense, and it doesn't really help anybody. It's much better to make 100,000 garments after you sold them, and make the garments faster, so that customers can still have them. And I know we're not there yet, but I think that is a clear direction, and that's where we should probably focus a lot of our attention.
On this question, and of course, specifically, the last pull-based demand, let's say on-demand production. That's a very, 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 very valid point. I think let's go on to the next question. I think Stephanie, you would like to take that question, or should I take that one?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
All right. So we are now looking at what are the 3 key things the industry should focus on in the next 1 year. Because this is the immediate future what we have. So I would say, we need to really focus, prioritize first, second, third. So what are the 3 key things that the industry should focus on in the industry? And we can start in the same order. Or Alberto, you can start, no problem.
This Alberto.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. The three things, right? Okay. I would like to then sort of build up on what you were saying. From our perspective, you know, the chemical company, we are really low in the food chain. Okay, we are the last guys on the block. And from our perspective, what we feel is that there is an overall lack of strategic vision, you know, and I would say not necessarily throughout the value chain, but especially when it comes to brands and retailers. Well, I had the you know, the privilege to be operating in a brand and retailer, and pretty good one as well, you know, Levi's, and I do know that sometimes there is a rush, you know, to get to market, and you know, there is the season coming. You're not necessarily thinking or looking at the whole picture. You're really trying to, you know, go to market in a way that you think is the more appropriate. But if I have to think of the three things that right now the industry should focus on, well, obviously, right now there should be a focus on what could be done with the massive inventory that, you know, it's in the warehouses around the world, and which can probably not be used before the next season or year or years, you know, and that should be clearly a priority. And I really hope that, you know, efforts are being there in order to understand what can be done. Then, second, because fast fashion completely drew the consumer to a commodity world, and because once you get into a commodity world, you're really not really adding value. You know, there should be a focus on a sort of a newfound love for quality and longer lasting products and better design, which is what we were, you know, talking about a second ago. And that requires a fundamental revolution, you know, within brands and retailers, which is what Maurizio was saying. And then if I think of a sort of a third thing that should be focused on is there are way too many suppliers, customers of ours that are suffering and risk bankruptcy because of, you know, questionable commercial behaviors. Then I think the industry entirely needs to focus on ethics that are real and that are sometimes missing, you know, and I know this is a big point, and there should be ethics and should be the enforcement of them. I don't know exactly how the Transformer Foundation, led by Andrew Ola, is really working on that. I have the honor of being part of that movement, and I can tell you that there are like ideas being put in place, and it might be a vehicle of the industry and for the industry to resolve problems with mediations. Okay, but I think something needs to be done in that area. Otherwise, the entire value chain is going to suffer, and we're gonna lose incredible value. So this would be my three areas to focus on.
Thank you, Alberto. And sorry, I'm not taking, I mean, I would like to move quickly because I think we have a lot more to cover. So we quickly move to Alberto, second Alberto, Candiani.
I also apologize for the location change, but there is some outrageous gardening taking place outside, especially on Thursday morning in this area, obviously. Well, the first three things. The first one, I think we covered that with reduction. So how to embrace reduction, how to make it feasible. The second one is related to efficiency. If you ask my dad, he would tell you that the essential part of being sustainable is being efficient. And fully agree with Stefano, with everybody, like we've been very inefficient and for many, many different reasons. And so we need to, you know, again, when I say we have to do less and better, it relates also to that. And so if you look at concepts as recycling, for instance, which could be downcycling, reusing something, or upcycling, that also relates to efficiency very, very much. And it's a very industrial concept that some people totally forgot about. And the third point is, let's make good stuff and communicate it properly, because there is a lack of interest, there is a lack of excitement when it comes to denim. I mean, it should be one of the coolest things ever. And I'm not saying this because I'm a denim guy myself. And I mean, I'm talking to roughly 300 people who are all excited about denim. I'm looking at the global market. So now we are all concentrating on traceability, for instance. And traceability, the essential key or keys of traceability would be truth and facts. Unfortunately, we are tracing things back to a point where marketing is still creating a very interesting gray or green area where things you don't really know what's true, what's not. Now we can talk about blockchain and blah, blah, blah. At the same time, you know, blockchain doesn't really create excitement, but it would be a cool topic also. Or transparency. But as Maurizio said, if you want to communicate transparently about something, you should be honest in first place. And now, I mean, I really hope that people during this lockdown had a little more time to investigate and to build their own education, because I understand that it's not easy to boost excitement into the industry as much as it's not easy to boost clarity. And informations have to be, you have to dig quite deep in order to find out what's true and what's not. And we let that go. We allowed that to happen. We allowed many brands to spray paint their facades in green, and we wouldn't really go behind that facade. So again, we should be very, very careful and conscious. We need better communication. And when I say better communication, I mean more transparent, more honest, or honest, there's no more honest, and at the same time, cool, excitement, engaging. I mean, there are many platforms in the future, especially through the digital experience, which will engage and connect with the consumer in a different way, from customization. Look at that. Would you buy like a customized pair of jeans for $300 or even $500 instead of 10 fast retailers jeans for 30? Or would you buy something which is considered premium for about 200, 250 and probably costed like 25 to be made? So when I'm talking about the feasibility of this new market, we should also look into business models. I believe that many business models will no longer work. Too many times we have a pair of jeans that costed $10, $12, $15, and then you have fast retailers selling those guys for $49, $39, and then you have some other guys selling for $100, $150. But it's pretty much the same stuff. And so I think that, I mean, of course, new business models will probably happen faster. I mean, I said customization, that's one, of course. But it's about you, consumer, citizen, trying to put your hands into it, try to create your product. So you want to know more. And the more money you spend, the more you want to know about it.
Thank you, Alberto. So reduction, efficiency, quality, customization, some of the keywords from you. Thank you so much. And we move on to Aamir.
Thanks, Sandeep. I personally feel that as an industry, to give a direction to the industry, like if you draw parallels from other industries, for example, automobile industry has seen a disruption with the coming of electric vehicles, right? EVs. We saw the phone industry going through a huge change when you got smartphones, right? LED television has been able to sort of disrupt the television industry. So even in our industry, technology, if you see what has happened, some examples, for example, Carlos from Jeanologia is here, right? What laser has done to the industry? It has really disrupted the whole garment finishing part of the industry, right? So it's way more sustainable, it's way more efficient, less losses, lower costs. So I think technology, and today there are multiple technologies which one can see in our industry, right? From dyeing in a very, very efficient manner with very, very low costs and with very sort of let's say very sustainable manner, to recycling, to multiple things that we're seeing in our industry. And I personally feel that this technology has a power of being able to make the industry more efficient, more sustainable, right? Bring down costs as well and reduce wastages. So this whole thing about using technology, that's to me is one important part. in the industry. So, because then it can take the industry to the next level. It can give a new direction to the industry. And all these things will form a subset of that. So sustainability, circularity, all these things will be a subset of that. That's one point. The other thing is that I believe in our industry, we have got some great design people, right? Very, very good design talent. We've got some very good operations talent, merchandising talent, management, right? So the managerial part of the industry, because for the industry to create value, attracting good talent to the industry. So like you have talent going to other industries and creating disproportionate value in the industry. Unfortunately, as an industry, we've not been able to attract great talent where we have been able to create value, for the stakeholders. So if we end up doing that, then more capital will flow to the industry, more money is going to flow to the industry. People will start seeing this industry as creating a lot of value. So these are a few things that came to my mind that I thought I'd share.
Thank you, Aamir. Very valid points, specifically the technology part. It's applicable everywhere, and new technologies are coming, and of course we need to expedite those, and the human talent, that's really so critical, and we have seen that in the IT industry, how it has changed the IT industry. So, okay, we move on to Carlos.
Thank you. I think there's really great points being made by my friends here, and I just want to very quickly mention that getting the consumer back to play with us, to engage with us is critical. I think now I mentioned the digital world because consumers embrace it, understand it. We can start now customizing everything from our pizza to our tennis shoes, and we still have a few things that to do with denim. I think there's been some really clever experiments that have been done at customization, and certainly collaboration, digital collaboration, to me sounds fantastic. We have now the technology to get people who really love denim to participate, to bring in ideas, and I think we need to focus on that ecosystem that becomes really digital, that allows us to work with raw material producers, fantastic fabric, and how do you match fabric with the specific finishing that you want, etc. So I think the digital world is number one. Also, I love the concept of an honest sustainability and traceability that Alberto was sharing. I think greenwashing, guys, needs to stop. We need to reassure consumers that when we say something is sustainable, it is. We have to be careful about hurting the industry with false claims or inaccurate claims. I think we need to be very responsible in the way we pursue sustainability as an industry. And I really believe that we can do it. I really believe we can. We are wholeheartedly believers that this industry, being as smart as it is, as clever as it is, as creative as it is, we can find a way and a path forward. And the last thing I would like to say is that we need to figure out a more financially viable model than having huge inventory plays that are like betting $1 million on a roll of dice. It's too much. It's hurting everybody. It's hurting stores. It's hurting brands. It's hurting factories. It's hurting mills. It's hurting everybody when we don't have logical decision making and how we finance and how we interpret inventory. It's crazy to think that we can survive having, like Stefano was saying at the beginning, millions upon millions of garments that are never sold, that are never used, that are just dumped. We have to be more clever. And I think we are clever as an industry, and we have to figure out a fair way to share risk throughout the supply chain so that we hurt each other less and thrive better. So I'm feeling that if we can do a few of these things right that my friends have said, we're going to be in very good footing.
Thank you, Carlos. So, I mean, definitely the financial models probably need to be changed, where we can have, productions with, lesser investments and better business models. So, okay, we move on to now Maurizio. This thing is off. Microphone.
All great points from everybody. It's difficult to follow, but not being a technician, in the industry, I'm thinking about three things instinctually. One requires zero investment, financial investment. It's called rethinking of our values, our principles, and the way we work. I think that every company, every individual and every company should have this conversation with himself, herself, and ourselves. What is our company stands for, and why are we in business for, and what type of business we want, and how we want to conduct ourselves. So that to me is number one. Number two is I believe that we have no other alternatives than collaborating. Spirit of collaboration it's something that is fundamental nowadays. I mean, we all suffer from the same illness. We are all suffering from the same crisis, from the same virus, from the same financial challenges. I think that there is enough culture, knowledge, and willingness to create alliances so we can all together solve some of the issues that we have. So, and good point about involving citizens into this, because they have also something to say, and we can learn from them. Instead of using them as consumer, we use them as inspirer of a new way of thinking. And the third element is, and the spirit, this idea, the third point to me is changing mentality in the way we design and make product. I think, of course, I will always vote for good product, better product, and then the big question about denim is that when I say the changing mentalities, of course, is about denim. And my question for everybody: is denim a 5-pocket pair of pants?
Yeah, that's a good question to answer, I think.
Can I answer that, Maurizio?
Sure.
It's like, to me, Maurizio, and to all the Italian friends will relate to this, is that, there is espresso and then there's coffee.
Yeah.
So you might, every morning, you might have cafe americano, you might go to Starbucks, but every morning you want to go to your favorite cafe and have that double espresso, whether you're in Bergamo or you're in Milano. So, possibly that's that's my response to that.
Very well said.
Well, I would like to say, just to answer that to Maurizio, at Jeanologia, we have the privilege of collaborating with fantastic brands and fibers and companies, and we see some designs of dresses, of jackets, of vests, of all of these fantastic apparel pieces that are denim inspired and beautiful. And I think it's not a 5-pocket. I think it's absolutely we love the comfort, we love the feel, the look of denim. And I can say that if we are able to keep consumers falling in love with denim, we will all have a successful business in the long term. We just need to figure out how do we adjust to new realities and keep moving forward.
Yeah, but I'm also, thank you, Carlos. If I may, I think my question, which is a question that I often ask myself, is that denim actually started as a fabric that was not intended for clothing. So I'm thinking that what else can we do as an industry, as maker of product? What can we do without falling into the same extremely congested and dense and confusing assortment of 5-pocket jeans that everybody wants to make for the cheapest possible price. And I think that the idea is that what can we design into that is useful and helpful and utilitarian in this world, that is also an alternative to apparel jeans. That's my. Can we build tents again? Can we build wallpaper? Can we build anything? Can we build PPE? Uniform? Can we build masks? Can we build anything? So I think that anything needs to be reevaluated, because we tend to think about denim as a jeans thing, as a jean industry. I see it as a wide canvas of opportunities. That's what my question was originally.
Thank you, Maurizio. Thank you, Carlos, Aamir, for all the inputs. And Stefano, know your inputs on this. And then once you have given these inputs, Stefano will go for some polls, and where everybody can vote on a couple of questions, and we see the results from the entire participants, from the panelists, and everything together.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of questions that are coming through, so we'll probably have to skim through those and see if there's anything that we want to reply straight away. Yeah, it's 3 priorities. One is pretty much a given. We'll have to look into rationalizing both fabric bases and garment bases, because it's quite frankly out of control. We think we're also smart. We're really a bunch of idiots. How many fabrics have you made over the history of your company, Aamir? 15,000 maybe? But how many of those are really truly different fabrics? Same with you, Alberto. How many fabrics have you made just because we cannot say no to a customer and say, no, we have this one. It's exactly what you need. And eventually we'll have to get there, because we're all looking at incredible amounts of stocks out there and inventories piling up all over the place of stuff that is actually perfectly good. There's nothing wrong with it, but we fell into this trap of this, it has to be new at all costs. We have to have seasonal newness. What the hell does seasonal newness mean in denim? Denim is the same fabric that you can wear all year round. There's no, a lot of these things are self-inflicted. So I think now we're going to be forced to look at these things more rationally, and the reduction of quantity will come as a consequence. And I'm not advocating that we should raise our prices on everything. I understand that very well. There's a lot of people who cannot afford to buy expensive clothes. So it's not like overnight we can say, I reduce my quantities by 50%, I increase my prices by 25%, and I'm gold. It's not that simple. But one thing that we should work on together as an industry is to try and educate people. We've done a phenomenal job at miseducating our customers and let them believe that it was okay to buy all disposable stuff. I think people should realize that old saying, I think it's so good. It says, I am too poor to afford cheap clothes. And it's very true. If you buy cheap stuff, you end up spending a lot more at the end of the day, because you're going to have something that is not going to last, it's not going to have any quality, it's not going to have any strength or anything. So that's one major change that I would like to see in the industry. Second one, we've been talking ad nauseum about sustainability for the last 3 years. I hope people will not forget it right away and say, no, we're in survival mode now. We cannot afford to spend more to try to recycle or to try to make better use of our resources. I see recycling facilities are struggling right now. Everything is being thrown away, thrown in the landfill. Used garments cannot be shipped because there's a fear of contamination. So there's a lot of issues that we need to focus on. And the third one that I think is pretty essential is that we really need to start looking at I think people should start looking at the definition of partnership again, because it's something that people have been talking about for so long. But now that the proverbial shit hits the fan, partnership is out of the window. And so many customers have shifted into panic mode, and it's not a judgmental call. I understand that when you're really with your back to the wall, you have to look at trying to save your skin, and it's easier to look at the immediate problems that you have to face now than looking at the consequences down the line. But all these partnerships that we've been talking about are pretty much moot right now. There's no partnership if you think it's okay to go to your largest suppliers and say, oh, sorry, by the way, all the orders that you produced, they're canceled, and everything that you have in your pipeline, it's canceled. And well, if we go back to work, maybe I'll come back to you, and I'm probably going to ask you for a substantial discount because I haven't been able to make my margin for the last 3 months. So we need partnerships more than ever. And brands, retailers, factories, textile operations, we all have to work together because that's the only way to get out of this. We can't just keep pushing the buck down the line and just allow the lowest part of the operation to suffer the most. It's just not right.
Thank you, Stefano. Very valid point, especially regarding partnerships and collaboration. Probably that is the future when the supply chain is so strongly integrated with each other that these off-the-line cancellations and these are not possible. I mean, when you have a deeper relationship, you have kind of partnerships, investments with shared investments and other things. So I think that is probably what future should be. I don't know it can be or not. So anyway, now let's do a couple of polls with a couple of questions, and all the participants and all the panelists, they can also select the answers, and we'll see the results also immediately, and then it will give us some insights from what people are thinking, what among the people who are present here. So can we have the polls started? Okay.
So are we supposed to give an
yes,
answer
here? Yes, everybody, all the panelists.
Oh, we have. Oh, sorry.
And all the participants also. All the attendees who are watching this, they must vote.
That's fun.
So we just take another 10 seconds. Okay, it's done. Everybody's voted. I mean, that was a bit too quick. Can we have results on this, or we move to the other question? Just a minute. Okay, we have already the results on this. Sustainability comes out at the top, 68%. Better quality, health and protection. So sustainability is the winner from this. Okay. The next question. Everybody's voted.
Yep.
So can we have the answers? Results. Again, it goes in the same direction. Sustainability is the winner. The next question. Okay. The results. All equally.
Yeah.
All right. So the views of the panel on this results, you know.
No surprise there. Although I'm not sure if it is our wishful thinking or if it is a reflection of reality, because we all think that sustainability should become even more relevant. I hope it's going to be the case. I really have no data to confirm or to confute this assumption, but obviously we're all hoping that that's going to be the case.
Well, I think it's refreshing to see that the leadership of our industry, which is hopefully watching us here, is really thinking this, because we all need to be thinking about a sustainable future for our industry, and not only in the way on our footprint, but like we were discussing in a more holistic way, like Stefano has said before. So it's reassuring to see the results.
Yeah. Anybody else wanting to add any comments specifically regarding the segments of the denim garments which are probably going to be affected in terms of sales? I was expecting men's to be most affected. I don't know.
I was expecting.
No, I think it's going to be across the board. If you shut all the stores down, there's really not much differentiation there. If anything, I think our jeans are suffering the most, and people buy more tops and shirts, because if you're only working like this remotely with the camera, you don't even need to wear pants. So people are buying more tops.
Only the tops are enough.
Yeah, and I hope we're all wearing pants here, but I don't care actually.
So coming to questions from the audience, there's one interesting question. Do you think in the near future, can we expect that in any time in the near future, or I mean, let's say a couple of years, we can have denim as 100% recycled?
100%?
Recycled.
Yeah, it's already existing. It's limited.
No, I mean, in the sense, the complete production, everything. Denim,
everything.
I mean, it's not a very, very small, minuscule part of this thing, but as a regular production.
No.
I don't know if that's actually the right goal. 100% recycled is great, but I think the most important part is 100% recyclable. It's far more important that we create something that can be used and reused and upcycled afterwards than forcing the use of recycled material. Eventually, if we are smart in how we produce and we create a real circular economy, we don't even need to have recycled material at the very beginning. We just have to be smarter in how we use it and how we reuse it afterwards.
Yeah, let's look into regenerative properties, and yeah, Stefano just mentioned circularity is the final goal. So it's actually very important to recycle things. It's our duty to recycle everything pretty much. And eventually, you have things which are recyclable just once and things which could be recycled more than once. And again, we can go on forever now. But yeah, circularity is made of the regeneration of products in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So one more question. Which segment of the supply chain will need to adjust the most in the coming times? Coming, let's say 1 year or 2 years, to adjust to the new reality, whether it is the fabric side, the garment side, the fiber side, the retailer side, the brand side. Which part of the supply chain will really have to adjust the most?
To me, retail.
Sorry?
For me, it's retail.
Retail
is the one that really needs to be, because that's the final conduit. That is that is where it all ends, and if it's done properly there, then everything before that has to work better.
I agree with Stefano, because markets receive signals, and we as a whole industry receive signals from retail, which supposedly is watching very carefully what consumers want. And I think we all need to help retail by understanding what consumers want as best we can. But I tend to agree with Stefano that the retail side of things, do we have significant more online sales? Do we have better ways of reaching out? How we meet consumers at the end of this whole important supply chain is going to be critical.
Yes.
100%. 100% in agreement with Stefano and Carlos, and direct to consumer is one of the way to go. And I think there is a digital roof and there is a physical roof, and I think the two needs to work together. And one of the biggest collaboration that I see, a useful collaboration, is between landlord and those companies and people that have intention to redesign, re-engineer what retail is. We have a situation where retail was shot for, like, say, an average of 45 days, almost globally. So no wonder people are selling 50% less. I mean, come on, it's like, it's a fact. If you close the door, nobody comes in. So I'm not really looking at those type of news, but I'm looking at who are those department stores and big chains and mono brands and independent stores that will reemerge with a retail proposition that it's intelligent and it's interesting. and it is a retail story with value. I think that's and that's why is that in the big American corporations and I'm thinking about Gap. I'm thinking about Neiman Marcus today bankrupt. It's they Gap, I think, spend $140 million in rent every month. I mean, this is public knowledge. I'm not accusing anybody. I think right there is something that it's not connecting to me. Is that do we need all those stores? Do we need all those department stores? How many Macy's we need in the United States? How many H&M do we need around the world? Do we need an H&M every other store, not every other block? And I think that that all of this is done in the name of world domination. Globalization it's being the world leader of something. And I think there is a deterioration of retail, which started way before the virus. And now it's the greatest opportunity that we have is to redefine that. I'm thinking, I've been going crazy the last 2 or 3 days thinking about there are not denim stores anymore. There are denim walls here and there, but is there any retailer that is really specialized on the most democratic garment in the planet? No. It's volume.
Maybe 10 in the world.
Sorry?
Yeah, maybe 10 in the whole world.
Maybe. So it's a fragment, it's dust. And I think that denim is such culturally a relevant story, an honest story, and a design challenge in really understanding what can be done with that. And it is a story that it's evaporating. So I think that there are a lot of opportunity. Retail is incredible. Retail is an amazing story. In my own planet, which is the planet of reimagination of what is left over, I have 1.5 million ideas, because there will be so much stock right now. There will be so much good stuff around the world that it's worth recycling, re-engineering, transforming, embellishing, and company can stop. The idea of brands not producing next season or seasons is in every single conversation. It's like, can we pause? We are not going to produce anything. We have, our warehouses are full of merchandise. Brands are not accepting your fabrics, or they are canceling orders. Why? Because they have too much stock and they don't know how to sell, and their clothes and their stops and their stores are closed.
Maurizio.
And the moment we're gonna open, we don't know what the citizen will want, which is the biggest issue here, is that we don't know how we're going to emerge individually from this.
talking about retail, I mean,
sorry, Alberto. I'm not.
See.
I don't want to be. I don't want to sound pessimistic. I think this is one of the biggest opportunity that we will ever have in our life to do it right. And I'm excited and I'm optimistic about tomorrow.
I'm intrigued about the future too. And I was actually referring to you because you were part of that. When as Candiani, we decided to open the Candiani store in Milano, it was to become a specialist, not to sell the Candiani brand, but to sell our top customers and to become truly specialists, like focusing on sustainable innovation, so we could sell our top collaborations, so we could actually expose to the end consumer, to the citizen, our technology, our innovation. And again, it is more to create awareness towards Candiani as an ingredient branding and a mill, but also through these brands, I mean, again, our top customers and our top collaborations, we can create education in a way. So we can actually tell more to the buyer, to the guy who's entering the store and he wants to know more about denim. And you'd be surprised, like there's such a little tiny knowledge. Tiny. And people like you are super inspiring because your vision is actually very, it is philosophical, but it's comprehensible. And what we have to do in each single detail of our communication, we have to make sure that what we do in our communication, in our product, has to be comprehensible. Because if you do not understand what this is about, then you don't really appreciate it. And that's about education. You have to share more. We all have to share more so people can understand more. And once they understand more, they can appreciate it. When they appreciate it, then finally they can say, I love my pair of jeans. But you can't say, I love it if you don't know what it is about.
That is great point. There is one question that keeps coming up, and I'd like to address it because it's something that people keep asking and they keep talking about it, and it's always the same old question is, but making it sustainable costs more, and are people actually prepared to pay more, and all that nonsense. So I'd like to address it in there's two different aspects to me. One is, we know the cost of sustainability, but we don't really seem to understand what the cost of non-sustainability is, and it's a lot bigger. So we have to decide whether we want to pay something now, or if we want to pay a lot more down the line. And what's happening today is a consequence of the fact that we did not pay attention to a lot of the signals that we had. The second one is that it's actually a moot question, because if we do it seriously and if we tackle it properly, making stuff in the more sustainable manner is actually cheaper than making it in the conventional manner. And granted, it will require some investment up front. So that's why there's a big hurdle in our business, due to the fact that most factories and mills do not have the financial stability to invest a lot in the future, because they have no idea whether they're going to be around next year. They don't know if their biggest customer is going to walk away from them tomorrow because the prices, they found a better price that is from somebody else who can do it for 5 cents cheaper. So a lot of people are hesitant in making investments, and some of the structures are old and are probably not even worth rebuilding or investing in. However, the people who have made the move and who have actually done it, they're proven with facts that you're actually saving money. It's cheaper, because if you start saving water, you start saving raw material, you start recycling, you become more efficient with your energy. Those are all very significant costs. And if you become more efficient in your production, then the cost of your garments or your fabric comes down as well. So at the end of the day, it's a false question that we have, that we need to pay a lot more for sustainable stuff. It's not true, but we can only help our friends in the supply chain to make the right investments if we can give them some kind of guarantee and support and say, we really are your partners. We realize what you're doing and we appreciate what you're doing, and we are prepared to stick with you. And we expect you not to increase the cost of your fabric right now, even in spite of the extra cost that you have. But from my side, I will guarantee you that I'm going to keep buying from you. So once the mill knows that they can count on future business, they're going to do it. There's really no alternative. It's so easy.
Can I add one point? I think, Stefano, you're right about the long term, but we know that short term, those investments you talked about and R&D, they come with a cost. But to me, I mean, now I'm looking at 1 yard or 1 meter of fabric. You have something average at $4, and then you have something which includes that R&D, those smarter ingredients or better technology, and today is at $5.50. It's a realistic difference. We have differences. They could go from 10% up to 100% more. But let's say that you have an average product for $4 and a much better product for $5.50. $1.50 difference. So even in short term, where sustainability comes with a cost, I'm questioning business models over this, because I find quite shocking that this $0.50 becomes more of a relevant factor than fabrics and garments produced for like such a cheap, like let's say a garment made with $10 and then you find it in stores for $100. So we're now looking at that $1.50 and we're not really questioning, you know, what's behind the cost of a finished pair of jeans and the retail price, which could be incredible again. But long term, it's all related to efficiency. So if you do the right investments, yes, you can become very competitive with your sustainable products. But you got to keep investing, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would just like to say, Stefano, in the innovation side and what you were saying about cost of sustainability, I agree with you. It's no longer more expensive to produce sustainable. I think it's actually cheaper. The key here is, do we innovate, like Alberto said, throughout the business model? Because we seem to really focus on a few cents on labor and a few cents on fabric, but plan for massive discounts because we miss what the consumers really want. So I think the business model changes, the investments needed to be faster, to be more accurate with consumers, to really be able to bring sustainable product to market in a really clever way. The business model, like Alberto said, I would really focus on that, because the investments come from that ability to capture the imagination of consumers and to protect your margin at retail. If you have to dump product because you missed that, then of course the whole model becomes unsustainable. So I think that like the right level of investment throughout the supply chain will make it cheaper for everybody, and the business model will work.
Yeah, and again, it's down to retail.
Yes, the whole thing comes back to retail again and again. So I mean, that's of course the most critical part of our entire supply chain. And retail is dependent on consumers, and we are somehow not able to educate the consumers in the right way. That's what we are missing.
Sandeep, one point here. This whole discussion around sustainability, I believe, very soon, possibly it'll be beyond discussion. It'll be a question of table stakes. It'll be a question that, look, it's like you have to pay your taxes. It's like you have to hire people above a certain age. So there's certain things which are given, right? So I think we're clearly headed towards a situation where this will be a given, right? So it'll be beyond discussion, and you don't have a choice, right? So one will have to do those investments, and the investments will have to get deployed into your costs, and hopefully bringing in the sustainability along with innovation will bring down the total cost of the total cost of ownership, right? So the end-to-end cost should go down, and that should sort of end up compensating for these these prices, as Alberto was mentioning. One should get rewarded for those.
True. One of the key points also comes up in sustainability. I mean, in this whole argument is the involvement of government. If the governments are involved in some way, as one of my friends was speaking to you 2 days back, she was telling me that in Netherlands probably they are putting a higher tax on non-sustainable products. I don't know if that's the case, But if that's somehow we can, the governments can get involved in this kind of thing, then it becomes very easy for the entire supply chain to follow the rules. So, okay. Now, are we taking any other questions? I mean, from the attendees, or anybody wants to take any other question from the attendees, or let me
There's
take
a lot
one.
of questions here.
Too many.
A lot of questions.
Okay, by that time, let me just put a small question if somebody wants to answer. What are the major fundamental changes you see in the character of denim as a fabric and a garment in the coming times?
The character?
How the denim is composed today. I mean, as a fabric and as a garment. How we create the denim as today as a fabric and as a garment. So, do you think that will change over a period of time?
Always evolves. But I leave this one to Alberto, Candiani, and Aamir, because they are the ones who are making fabrics here.
Well, there will be an evolution. As Stefano says, we are always trying to evolve a fabric which doesn't really want to be evolved, because you want denim to be authentic and to stay authentic, to stay true. Of course, you can add performance. Of course, you can add different compositions and different ingredients in order to make it nicer, softer, greener, more efficient, everything. Still, we're making a very iconic piece of fabric that now people are looking to evolve, maybe around workwear and that type of inspiration, because extra performance may be required by, I don't know, finishings. Like everyone's talking about antimicrobial treatments that will eventually protect you from viruses, bacteria, and blah, blah, blah. I think there are very interesting materials. I think we should be paying a lot of attention in this case, because sometimes we, too often we relate technical and technicality, technical innovation to synthetics. I think it's even in this case, we should be looking deeper into new technologies and smarter ingredients as biosynthetics or even bioproducts that could be super, super interesting. I think those are gonna eventually change a little bit the surface of denim, mostly if we look at finishing applications on the fabric, also on garment. But generally speaking, I don't see major changes happening in terms of aesthetics. It's more about the content. We change the content more than what we change the aesthetics.
Can I step in so that I give Aamir some extra time to think? Because when it comes to evolution and innovation in the era of denim, I think that chemical suppliers do have something to say, or can have something to say, right? And there is a lot of research that has been put into finding solutions that are providing different performance, better performance, different aesthetics, better aesthetics, and even with different chemicals and different chemical breaths that are more conscious, that are more responsible. Now, what we suffer really is the lack of alignment between retailers and brands when it comes to standards. And there is a lot of efforts that we are putting in order to accommodate different standards and different requirements. So now, if there was one thing that we were to ask brands and retailers was to please to align on standards so that we can avoid all the time and energy and efforts and investments that we are made in order to accommodate different standards, and we can better focus on innovation and research, which is what we do best and what we like to do.
I would like to sort of, stick my neck out and say that I see a huge disruption coming in the industry. I see a dramatic change. And the way that the new technologies that one is looking at, right, whether it's about, wash treatments on the fabric or on garments or the laser technologies and many other such technologies that one is seeing on the horizon, right? And the early stages, they're under incubation, they're certain under commercialization. Fabrics will have to evolve to deliver to those technologies. I think it's such a large revolution that one sees it coming, that will be very difficult to hold back. Of course, authenticity is going to remain important. If I was to give an example, it's like, all the cotton that you had initially was organically grown, right? But this whole thing, again, I'm not getting into right or wrong, but genetically modified cotton is so powerful because it's so efficient, and costs and things like these, the sort of productivities are so high that the whole world has moved to genetically modified cotton. I'm not talking about right or wrong. Similarly, the kind of disruptive innovations that you see happening in terms of whether it's foam dyeing, or it's waterless dyeing, or it's waterless finishing, processing, multiple things happening on the at various levels of commercialization. I believe fabrics will have to evolve to live up to those, to deliver up to those. So I see those changes coming for sure.
I have one more point about denim, and it's more of an open question than really an answer. As we know, denim has been around for a very, very long time. Indigo in particular has been with humans for an incredibly long period of time. I think the oldest fragment of cotton dyed in indigo is from 6,000 years ago, 2000 before Christ, from some excavation in Peru. So it's definitely been around us for a very long time. And over time, there's been a lot of urban legends that have grown around the use of indigo, and it's become this sort of mystical or magical dye stuff. And there are properties within indigo that are probably factual. And one of them was the fact that it was insect repellent. So apparently people like to wear indigo garments when they were working in the fields because it would keep the mosquitoes and the flies away. I was reading some old medical studies that were trying to investigate the truth about some claims that the indigo dye stuff has actually some antiviral properties, that it actually kills viruses. So I don't know how relevant these studies are. I need to do more research, but I would invite the guys here who are actually working on denim, and also both Albertos, because one on the fabric side, but also the other one is one of the top chemists that are in our industry, and investigate if there is any truth to it, because that could be an very interesting angle as people look more and more for a degree of protection from their garments. If we can substantiate this claim that indigo is actually a barrier against viruses, it could open some very interesting new possibilities. So I'm giving you some homework.
Maybe you're talking about natural indigo.
I'm taking a note of that, Stefano.
The chemical structure of chemical and synthetic indigo are exactly identical. So that would require further investigation. But yeah, the original studies were done on the plant derived indigo. But if there is truth to it, it's possible that it's also, you get the same performance from synthetic. But like I said, it's only, I'm not suggesting that people start covering themselves in indigo to protect from virus. They inject indigo in their veins and put very strong lights like lasers inside to clean all the virus.
No, that would be a steroid. Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That would be a steroid for the denim industry. If that comes out true.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Anybody wants to add any point on this before we try to? I think we're already running out of time. And are we taking any other questions from the audience? If anybody wants to take any question from the audience, Stefano or anybody else?
We should.
By the time I'll just summarize what the key points which have come out from various panelists, which is of course technology, reduction in quantities. We have to reduce our quantities. We can't keep on producing so much and sending it into the landfills. Efficiency is so important. If we are efficient, we create less wastage. Quality, we have to create higher qualities, better qualities, and as far as possible, if we can do away with the cheapest qualities which are spoiling the environment. Then sustainability, of course, is so important as always, and we have seen the polls also, and everybody's spoken about it. Digital communication, digital tools, digital presentations, and everything to reduce the wastage again in sampling and entire production process. Collaborations and partnerships, which are very important, so that we don't see a repeat of the situation what we saw now. Off the hand cancellations without any thought. If people are invested into each other, that will not be possible. Rethinking values, we have to you bring out our values back, which we have lost in the race that we have been through in the last 1 or 2 decades. And I think that's more or less. I mean, but of course, anybody wants to add in the point as a final contribution, you're most welcome.
Let's just do a quick round of final comments before we part ways. Who wants to start?
I will start. Just thanking you, Stefano and Sandeep, for this opportunity. I think we all are experiencing a little bit of a difficult moment now, but we should really take the time to think about transforming ourselves, transforming the industry we're in, and really thinking about how to connect with consumers and with each other. Certainly, it's been a pleasure. I thank you for the time, and to my fellow panelists, thank you for your insights. I learned a lot in this panel today. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you. Thank you, Stefano and Sandeep. Very exciting, this whole discussion, and a lot of insights. I mean, truly a lot of insights from these discussions. And I would like to end on a sort of optimistic note that hopefully we'll have more money coming to our industry from the consumers willing to look at us, and possibly that will help revive and sort of take the industry forward. So thank you all, and have a great time.
Thank you. So I would like to thank all the panelists, first of all, I mean, for taking our time. And this was actually a very wonderful discussion. So many, beautiful points came out and insights came out. You're all leaders in your own fields. And I mean, I learned a lot personally from this discussion a lot. And I want to thank Stefano for helping me, coordinating with this, co-moderating and organizing this. And all the audience which has been consistently through, they have been putting so many questions and so many comments, and unfortunately we don't have the time to take up all of those, but they have been really giving up some very valid points and very valid questions. So perhaps we might take that next time, and, when we take up a discussion. So I thank you, all of you, all the panelists and all the attendees, for making this possible, making the discussion possible.
Yeah, great pleasure for everybody. Thank you for the contributions. Most interesting, great discussion, conversation. It's always nice to be surrounded with by like-minded individuals. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of questions that went unanswered. Maybe we should have a follow-up at some point. Maybe next time we mix it up, because it's becoming a sausage fest here. we need to listen to the points of view of the better sex as well, and maybe expand it to more people from the retail and the brands as well. Not to put them on the spot, but because it's only fair that we listen to everybody. We can't just say, "Oh, you guys are doing it all wrong," and then not give them an opportunity to share their point of view. And I'm sure they're all working on trying to improve what's happening.
There's a bunch of people doing it right. You should invite both and create a good clash.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Very often we have these panels where we're all basically preaching to the choir. We're all in agreement. We all say, "Yeah, you're right here. You're right here. Absolutely right. You're more right than I could ever be." But we don't really have a conversation with people who strongly disagree with us, and maybe we should try to do that next time. Good point.
I personally received so many complaints from some of the female friends, in the industry, and they said, "Is the future for denim men's?" I mean, I said,
Yeah,
I didn't realize, when this panel was being, is that we didn't have any female participant in this. So
one thing to all women that love denim and they're into denim, you should know that the key person in the most relevant moment of the denim creation, which is weaving, the key person is always a woman. We call it the master woman. She's the one that puts things together. So we should start from that. Maybe at some point we should have a conversation about that specific person and that character, which honestly is the most relevant in our industry, in production.
Absolutely. So thank you, everybody. It was a really wonderful discussion, and let's hope to have another one very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And all the attendees.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you.